And I first just really want to take the opportunity to thank all of our new and existing partners for joining us today to discuss how to really get best ready for a conversation around M365 Copilot. If you don't know me, my name is Craig Conton Bader, and I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing at Block 64, and certainly thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Phil Carson, who will provide a quick intro. Go ahead, Phil.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here. Nice to speak with you. I'm Phil Carson. I'm one of the solutions experts here at Block 64, and I'm excited to bring you through, some of the recent changes in Copilot and how Block 64 can assist you and your customers.
Outstanding. So really from an agenda perspective, we wanted to achieve a few things today. The first is really to talk about the state of M365 Copilot. And what that means is, what is the state of generative AI and what are the licensing updates that you should be aware of? From there, we'll talk about really the keys to adoption. Who are the ideal customers to be having the conversation with today, and how do you get them ready? From there, Phil will take you through a pretty thorough demo of our solution and our Copilot assessment so that you can understand the power of the knowledge that you'll have at your fingertips. And we'll end with what we believe is a pretty powerful call to action. But before we do that, a bit about Block 64. In 2006, the phrase data is the new oil was coined. And I think it meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what I distilled from that was a quote from the person who said it, which was, data like oil isn't useful in its raw state. It needs to be refined, processed, and turned into something useful. Its value lies in its potential. And that pertains to data because unless it's extracted well, it's refined and produced for you to take to your customers, it's going to be really hard to have a tangible and exciting conversation around Copilot. So really, Block 64 since 2012 has been doing this. And our automated IT discovery and assessment platform has really been trusted by a lot of the people that you see on this screen here. And they've leveraged our technology to really streamline sales, increase opportunities, and really maximize value to end customers. And when they leverage our agentless remote discovery tool, they're able to perform a total IT inventory for that entire environment, provide insights on usage and compliance, and really leverage our analytics and insights portal to provide automated deliverables like Copilot to their customers. And if they do that well, and we do our job with all the heavy lifting, we will be improving your pre-sales capabilities. We'll be able to provide you with recommendations to take to your customers while also providing ongoing insights so that you can remain sticky. Now, we're going to get into the assessment in a bit, but before we do that, I am going to pass it over to Phil, who's going to give you some knowledge in and around what to expect around generative AI and how to take advantage of our assessment. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Craig. I don't think it's any real secret, right? Generative AI is here to stay, whether it be large language models such as ChatGPT or something a bit more artistic like Sora, or something that's specifically around productivity suites like Microsoft Copilot. According to Gartner, up to 80% of enterprises will be adopting generative AI within the next couple of years. That means you're going to start seeing it everywhere. And even today, we've already started to see some of the world's largest companies. We're talking Visa, Pfizer, KPMG, already adopting M365 Copilot. So as mentioned, it's something that's already here, and it's going to be here for quite a while. Now, as of November 2023, Microsoft 365 Copilot was primarily targeted at enterprise-level organizations, right? You needed M365, E3, or E5 licensing, and you had a 300-seat minimum. Well, in late January, these licensing requirements were actually changed and modified by Microsoft to target more of that smaller and medium-sized business. So now the requirements for licensing are a lot more open. Now, any M365 or O365 E3 or E5 license is M365 compatible. And in addition, it is now open to M365 business plans. So specifically, business standard and business premium plans qualify for Copilot now. In addition, there's no more 300-seat minimum. What that means is, first of all, it's a lot more common now to see organizations testing out Copilot, maybe purchasing 5 to 10 licenses at a time, or alternatively, coming back to that smaller and medium-sized business, You might have a customer who only has 200 users. They no longer need to purchase a full 300 seat minimum. They can license just the users that they actually do have. With that being said, the $30 add-on price still remains, that is still the same. So regardless, this is still a pretty significant cost investment needed by your customers. So what does it actually take to get customers ready for Copilot readiness, right? How do you see the most successful deployment of Copilot in a customer's environment? Well, there's three main pillars to Copilot readiness. The first one being a fully secure environment. So Microsoft is positioning Copilot as a zero trust framework conversation, essentially making sure that your users, your network, your data, your applications are all safe, secure, and locked down before implementing an AI model. The second pillar is licensing, right? We need to make sure that the licensing that a customer owns is actually M365 Copilot compatible. The third pillar is 100% M365 adoption, right? If a customer has not yet standardized on something like Teams or something like OneDrive, and they purchase a Copilot license, they may not actually get the most out of that license as possible. In addition, standardizing on a single suite of software potentially helps your customers with cost savings and reducing complexity of their environments. Well, how do you actually analyze these three pillars? How do you actually prepare the right insights from the data? How do you actually get your customer ready for Copilot? And that's where Block 64 comes in. So the Block 64 Copilot Readiness Assessment is a fairly standard 5-step process. The first step in here is a mini questionnaire. What this questionnaire asks is questions around customer-defined data and security policies. Things like, Active Directory synchronization, on-prem versus Azure Active Directory. So meant to gain an understanding of some of the non-tangible scanning data points. As mentioned, things like policies that we can't necessarily scan from an environment. The second step is to install our agentless discovery application. The agentless discovery application is used as a source of truth for data in a customer's environment, right? Sometimes your customers may not know the answer to some of the questions in the questionnaire, whereas the agentless discovery application can actually real-time scan the environment and pull back real, truthful, raw data, which kind of encapsulates the capture component of this. So as part of this assessment, information that we pull back is around stuff like software installs, application level vulnerabilities, things like Active Directory accounts. So tying back into that zero trust framework and trying to analyze the 6 domains. From there, a Block 64 analyst will help you and your customer through a debrief meeting, essentially taking yourselves through the findings as well as next steps. And then from there, providing guiding recommendations to your customer to help them in their Copilot journey. So next, what I'll show you is just a sample of our actual Zero Trust Foundations or Copilot Readiness deliverable. All right. This is just a bit of an excerpt from here. The full report is available if you do want to see a sample of it, but it is a bit lengthier than the slides that I'm showing in today's meeting. So the assessment itself covers all sorts of information, right? As part of this assessment, we're scanning hardware information, software information, and as mentioned, collecting questionnaire data. What we actually do with that data is build great visualizations focusing on things like productivity applications, talking about the security of Office, Visio, and project installs in a customer's environment, right? Making sure that there's no legacy installs that are no longer receiving patches. Alternatively, making sure that all of the Office installs in a customer's environment are actually Copilot compatible, right? The customer might have 2016 or 2019 installs of Office in their environment. They're still relatively current. However, they're not Copilot compatible. We'll dive into things like application level security. So analyzing every single application a customer has in their environment and looking for any vulnerabilities in those actual applications. So tying into the application pillar of the Zero Trust framework. We'll take a look at Active Directory security, so identifying potentially unused accounts in an environment or potentially unsafe accounts in an environment, right? Tying into that identities component of Zero Trust. We'll highlight potential overlap or potential sprawl of security software in a customer's environment. Now, there's two main scenarios that we can talk about here. The first scenario being potentially different departments within an organization purchasing different software suites from different vendors. It's a consolidation conversation as well as a reducing complexity conversation. The other direction that this can go is there might just be rogue installs of software. It's very common to see things like McAfee or things like Symantec installed as part of a third-party application that the IT team just doesn't know actually exists in the environment. We then dive into some of the more Copilot focused reporting, specific checks around what is the Copilot status of the customer's current M365 or Office 365 suite. So trying to specifically identify how many licenses does this organization own that you can buy Copilot for versus how many licenses does this organization have that potentially need new licensing to be Copilot ready. Essentially highlighting M365 Business Basic or Apps for Enterprise plans that need to be upgraded in order to purchase Copilot. We take a few of these individual data points and we kind of combine them together. So by calculating out things like, how many licenses or how many users in an organization are M365 supported, right? They are Copilot ready. Taking a look at things like the Zero Trust maturity score and identifying, okay, well, how much further does this customer need to go in order to get to or as close to 100% as possible? We then take a look at some specific product usage, looking at things like OneDrive usage or Teams usage, right? If we see an organization that's only using 40% of their owned Teams licenses, if they purchase Copilot for all 100% of their user base, only 40% of their users are actually going to be able to use Copilot in Teams, right? Essentially trying to make sure that a customer's uptake of existing product is already in place, right? That's that 100% Microsoft 365 adoption before implementing kind of an add-on license and hoping that those users are actually getting the benefits out of them. We tie those 5 scores together to give a customer an estimate on their Copilot readiness level, essentially saying, based off what we saw, you would probably be able to get 63% of the Copilot benefits based off your environment today. Well, if you do want to increase that score, right? If you recall me saying this is $30 per user per month. No one wants to spend, $100,000, a couple $100,000 a year just to have their users not actually use the product. So, all right, well, how do we make sure that we're as close to 100% Copilot ready as possible? Well, we have guidance at the bottom. Licensing. Make sure that the full environment is licensed for M365. Make sure that the entire environment has already standardized on Teams, or make sure that all of the user base is actually downloading and using their local Office installs, right? Making sure that users are getting the most feature-rich experience before implementing Copilot into the customer's environment. Based off that, we do have this trial offer. Well, I'll pass it back over to my colleague Craig to take you through it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Phil. Great work. Really the purpose of us putting this in front of you today is we did want to offer anyone on the call the opportunity to offer this to one of your customers. As our valued customer, we want to put you in a position to be successful. So what's different about this offer is it's a bigger environment, it's a longer engagement, and someone from our team will actually do the debrief and consulting on your behalf and really act as an extension, if you wish, of your team. To be eligible for this, you simply need to register at block64.com/copilot to lock in your opportunity before March 15th, and we will assign the appropriate resources to ensure that you have a fruitful and successful first Copilot assessment with Block 64.